Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We have always been using authorization and authentication within our applications. But this has always been a debate. What is the most secure way to store our data? Is it cookies? Is it local storage? Or is it session storage? Wait, let me tell you something. None of these methods are going to save you from CSRF attacks. Let's break down each and every case in detail and let's figure out which case is going to work for what scenario. So without wasting any time, let's get started. And at the end, I will also show you quick code demo so that we can know what we are talking about. So let's start with local storage. Local storage can save up to 10 MBs of data within your local browser. The data is still going to be there if user closes the tab or if user refreshes the page. This sounds great, right? Well, here is the problem. This is going to be very, very vulnerable to XSS attacks. This is also known as a cross-site scripting. But let me tell you what cross-site scripting is and how it works. So, for example, if an attacker comes with just one line of JavaScript code, and if he injects that one line of JavaScript code in any of the fields of a website which doesn't have input sanitation, and at the same time, which is storing their data in the local storage, if he submits that JavaScript code into that field, it is going to be very vulnerable because after that, every time someone will come into your website and whenever user will log in, their tokens will be stolen by that attacker because he has just injected that JavaScript code and your website has been attacked by cross site scripting. Now, the question is when to use local storage. Only use it if you want to store non sensitive data. If you are using it to store your authentication data or any other data, you are making a huge mistake. Next, we have session storage. Session storage is very similar to local storage, but the only difference between session storage and local storage is that data gets deleted as soon as user closes the tab. So in this way, it is quite more secure than the local storage. But it is still going to be very vulnerable to XSS attacks. Attackers can still inject malicious scripts within your website and then they can do all the damage. Then what's the best use case for session storage? It is best to use it when you are saving a temporary data like form inputs. But if you are saving authentication tokens or any sensitive data, don't do it. Just avoid it at all costs. Now let's talk about cookies, probably the most misunderstood method of storage. Unlike local storage and session storage, we can send cookies automatically over every single HTTP request. If we do not handle cookies properly, it is still going to be vulnerable to XSS attacks and cross-site scripting. But this can be cured by just using these three flags with every cookie in our website. We will have to associate these three flags only. The first flag is called as HTTP only flag. This is going to make sure that JavaScript will not be able to access your cookie. So this automatically removes the risk of cross-site scripting within your application. Second flag is a secure flag. This is going to make sure that cookies only get sent over HTTPS connections, not HTTP connections. Third one is same site is equals to strict. This is going to stop the requests coming from the other origins. So it is somewhat providing the protection from CSRF attacks. It is still not properly and fully secured from CSRF attacks, but it is providing somewhat more security as compared to the other methods. After all these discussions, at the end, we can conclude that cookies are the best method to store sensitive data. If we want to implement authentication within our application, then we will have to use cookies. But at the same time, we will also have to make sure that we are handling our cookies properly and correctly. As I said earlier in the introduction, that none of these methods are going to save you from CSRF attacks. Then what are we going to do about that? Well, we are going to implement CSRF tokens. So let's understand what CSRF attacks are and how we can implement CSRF tokens to prevent us from CSRF attacks. Let me first of all tell you what CSRF is. CSRF is an attack where user gets redirected to a malicious website in which a logged in user will be tricked to perform some of the unwanted actions of the website without the consent of the user. Let me give you an example. Okay, so let's say I am working on a website. I have built a website in which I am storing the user's authentication data in the cookies. That means when a user will log in to my website, his authentication data is going to be stored into the cookies of that user's browser. Okay, so let's suppose he has logged in and his cookies are stored in the browser now. Somehow he got a link of a malicious website who is making cross requests to my website. He can do anything. He can probably change the account settings. He can forget the password. He can perform any operation he wants. So let's say my cookies are still there because the user is still logged in. And if in the another tab, if he opens that malicious website, that means that attacker will be able to get the user's cookies now from the browser because I didn't had any CSRF protection on my website. When the user will click on the link and whatever script has been injected through that website, that operation is going to happen. So my website is going to think that it is actually user who is doing all this stuff. Probably he's trying to change the account settings or he's trying to delete the account. But in reality, it is a CSRF attack. It is not user, but it is an attacker who has stolen the cookies from my website because I didn't had any CSRF protection. That's how CSRF attack will look like. Okay, now the question is, even after implementing all of our measures, we are still very vulnerable to CSRF attacks. How are we going to prevent that? So the last thing we will be needing to do is to implement the CSRF tokens. What is CSRF tokens? CSRF token is a unique and secret value that will go along with your authentication cookie with in your every HTTP request. Okay, so let's go back to our example. So when you are logged in as a user, your authentication data is going to be stored in the cookie. As of now, you have no CSRF protection and it is very vulnerable to CSRF attacks. Now we have included the CSRF tokens. So CSRF tokens will go along with your authentication cookie in every HTTP request. So when you will go into that malicious website, yes, the attacker will be able to access your all authentication cookies. He will be able to steal everything, but still he will not be able to guess or obtain that CSRF token. So just because of that CSRF token, all the damage will be prevented and he will not be able to perform any unwanted actions as a user. All right, so let me show you guys quick code demo for whatever things we have discussed so far in this video. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to store my login authentication data inside JWT token, and that JWT token is going to be stored in the cookie. Along with that, I'm also going to provide CSRF protection to my CSRF protection to my data so that nobody will just come in on my website and will make CSRF attacks. Okay, so let's go through each and everything one by one. Okay, so this is the login route. Here it is a very simple login route. So we have defined username and password here. Once we have validated those credentials, we will have to create the JWT tokens here by using JWT.sign. Here I have defined secret key. In this case, I have just hard coded the secret key, but this is a really bad practice and I do not recommend you ever hard coding this. Instead, you can just create a .env file and you can always call that .env variable into your server file. But this is all about storing our data securely in cookies and also providing CSRF protection. That's why I have just hard coded it to make things simpler. But in real world applications, just do not do it. Okay, and then I have stored that JWT token, which I have created here inside a cookie. I have provided these flags here: HTTP only flag, secure flag, and the max age flag. HTTP only flag means that uh, this cookie will not be accessible via JavaScript, which will be preventing us from cross-site scripting. Secure means that this is only going to accept the requests that are coming over HTTPS connections, and this is just the expiry time. Okay, so this is all about. This is everything about the login route. I don't think if we need to add anything more here. And the next thing we will need to do is we'll need to create a middleware which will be verifying our JWT token. It is just verifying our token with the secret key that we have to find. So this is pretty much straightforward as well. This is the protected route, where we have generated our CSRF token. So once we have reached to that protected route, the CSRF token will be stored inside the cookie in the browser's console window. So if somebody will try to access that protected route, he will not be able to get the CSRF token because it is very much secured inside the cookies. Okay. So this is all about setting up the protected route. Let me tell you that this is just a simple demonstration of how we are implementing CSRF protection. If you are doing it in a real world scenario, what you have to do is that you will have to automatically generate the CSRF tokens from your front end pages. In this way, you will not have to create anything like this, which is manually generating the CSRF tokens. And this is the submit route. Okay, so as we have discussed, the main reason for implementing the CSRF token is state changing routes, not stateless routes, state changing routes. What do I mean by state changing routes? The functionalities or the routes which are going to change the state of application. For example, changing account settings, deleting the account of user, or anything like that, which can create a huge impact on the user's data. Okay, so here we are first of all verifying if it has CSRF protection included in it. That means if CSRF token is included in the request headers or not. If it is included, then only user will be able to access the submit form. Otherwise, he will not be able to do that. Okay, so this was pretty much straightforward implementation. Just one more thing I need to show you guys is this one. So this is just checking if the CSRF token in the requests matches the one in a stored cookie. So we are also storing CSRF token inside the cookie. Okay, so this is HTTP only true and the secure true flag as well. Okay, so I think this is pretty much straightforward. Let me run this program and then you guys will get the better idea of how things are working. Okay, so npm run start. Okay, so if I open Postman and if I send a request to this login API, okay, so as you know, we have already hard coded our username and password for this login route. So if I do this send, you should see that here the auth token is created. What does it mean by auth token? That means the JWT token that has been created to save authentication data is stored in the cookies now. There is no CSRF protection in the login route because we don't need that. We need CSRF protection mostly for the state changing routes, and login is not something that people are gonna do for CSRF attacks, right? So let me do get protected route first so that we can get our CSRF token. I think, sorry, what's the, yeah, okay, so it is just protected. It is not protected route. Okay, sounds good to me. So once I do that, we will have to check the body here. Okay, obviously this is not going to matter because we are making a get request and it doesn't matter if this is included or not, but just We don't need that. Okay. So now CSRF token has been created. Okay. Okay, so once we have done the get request for protected route, we have gotten our CSRF token, and CSRF token is now also stored in the cookies. Okay, now let's do the submit thing. Okay, so for example, you're just submitting a comment, or you're making any changes into any of the fields, which can just change the entire state of application. Um, it could be anything, right? So this is a just an example. So this is a submit route. Okay, so inside our header, we will need to add a CSRF token, and we can add it by doing XSRF token, and then we will have to copy this, paste this here. Okay, and then I will just need to send it. Okay, and now it is showing me that form submitted successfully. All right. So now let's say I'm an attacker. Okay, if I'm an attacker, that means I will not have a correct CSRF token, or probably I will not have CSRF token at all. Let's try to tamper the CSRF token. So if I remove some of these values, then let's check by sending the request, and let's verify if it is getting submitted or not if we just change these values in CSRF token. If we do this, we are gonna get the 403 forbidden error. That means invalid CSRF token. So this clearly shows that now our submit route, now our state changing route is completely protected for the CSRF tokens. And we have already kind of mitigated or reduced the risk of cross-site scripting because we have stored our authentication tokens inside the cookies. So in this way, we are able to kind of save ourselves from both XSS cross-site scripting and CSRF at the same time. Okay, so I guess this was everything for this entire video. I hope you guys have liked it. The entire motive of this video was to clear up the confusion between how to store our authentication data and what are the most secure practices depending on your use cases. So that was everything for this video, and thank you so much for watching. And if you have liked this video, please do share and subscribe.